The Galactic Dominion thought they were the apex predators of the galaxy, until they stumbled into a star system that wasn't supposed to exist. When Earth's ambassador, Kane, calmly warned them that contact between our peoples rarely ends, well, they laughed. Then 3 colossal ships appeared from nowhere, bending dimensions. This wasn't just a first contact. It was a reckoning. What happens when an empire built on conquest meets a civilization that has mastered restraint? Admiral Vex ordered a standard sweep of the Sol system as part of routine deep space patrol. Dominion long-range scans had shown nothing but dead, rocks and background radiation for 12 consecutive cycles. Sensor returns barely warranted a second look until the science officer's console erupted with alerts 3 minutes into the sweep. Reading asymmetrical gravitational pulses at bearing 027. The science officer cycled through 3 different analysis modes before turning his station toward the command chair. No known natural phenomenon produces this signature. Admiral, Standard Dominion Battle Doctrine Alpha required full-spectrum scans of any energy anomaly in unclaimed space. The cruiser's tactical officer activated secondary sensor arrays, while weapons crews ran pre-engagement diagnostics. Across 9 Dominion vessels, targeting systems warmed up like predators catching scent. Take us within visual range. Vex adjusted the tactical display showing 7 potential threat vectors. All ships to condition gold. The anomaly's profile defied categorization. Sensors registered what scans interpreted as a gravitational lens effect, but the numbers kept shifting. Like tracking a reflection in disturbed water, the Dominion instruments couldn't lock onto fixed parameters. On the bridge of the flagship Resplendent, discipline held firm as the formation closed to within 10,000 kilometers. Only the subtle tightening of gloved hands on armrests betrayed the crew's tension. No known species concealed their presence this completely, until choosing to reveal it. The main view screen flickered to life without warning. A human male in simple gray clothing stood against what appeared to be an ordinary office background. No alert had sounded. No signal had been detected. "I'm Ambassador Kane of the Terran Accord," the figure said. His standard galactic lacked the usual translator lag. "You've entered restricted space." Vex's first officer moved to cut the transmission, but the Admiral held up a hand. Dominion protocol mandated assessment before engagement. Restricted by whose authority? This system shows no markers or installations. Kane's calm never wavered. "Our detection methods differ from yours." His eyes tracked unseen data along the edge of the screen. "I must advise against further investigation. Contact between our peoples rarely ends well." Laughter rippled through the Resplendent's bridge crew. The Dominion had pacified 17 species across 3 galactic arms. Their weapons could crack continental plates from orbit. What threat could this solitary primate pose? Back on the bridge, Tactical Officer Krell noticed something unsettling. Every scanner showed the human broadcast originating from empty space ahead of them. No ship, no emissions, just a man's face hanging in the void where sensors detected nothing at all. The science station chimed again. 3 new contacts appeared at extreme close range, enormous angular structures materializing closer than safety protocols allowed. Hull cameras struggled to focus. The objects seemed to flicker at the edges, as though shifting between reality. "States, report," Vex barked. "Direct visual confirmation of 3 ships?" The science officer jabbed at his panel. "But scanners still show clear space. I'm reading structure dimensions inconsistent with known physical laws. Dominion targeting. Computers, the most advanced in known space, refused initial lock-on commands. Secondary systems auto-cycled through every firing solution algorithm before defaulting to manual override. Gunnery officers leaned into optical scopes to line up crude visual trajectories. Hold fire. Vex studied the largest vessels impossible. Geometry. The angles hurt to look at for too long. Hail them properly this time. The flagship's communications array deployed with a hum of charged particles. Before the operator could initiate transmission, Kane's face reappeared on every screen across the task force. "Your weapons won't function." He spoke with the certainty of a man discussing the weather. "This is your final warning. When Tactical confirmed all firing circuits had gone dead simultaneously across the fleet, the uneasy glances exchanged among bridge crews carried more weight than any sensor reading. These weren't pirates or some backwater defense force. This was something the Dominion had never encountered. 3 angular warships hung motionless before the Dominion task force, their contours shifting subtly like heat distortion over desert sands. Every optical feed showed perfect clarity, yet sensor arrays projected empty space where the vessels clearly existed. Science Officer Tell grabbed both sides of his console as if physical contact might stabilize the contradictory data. Multispectral scan confirms material presence, Tell reported through clenched mandibles. But mass detectors and gravimetric sensors show nothing. It's like they're selectively choosing which dimensions interact with our instruments. On the command dais, Admiral Vex maintained protocol-perfect posture. His second-in-command activated emergency fleet linking protocols. Standard Dominion doctrine demanded numerical superiority be leveraged immediately against unidentified threats. 9 ships against 3 should have been a foregone conclusion, if targeting systems could establish lock. Ambassador Kane's image reappeared across every display. This incursion constitutes a treaty violation. Withdraw immediately. First Officer. Krell leaned toward Vex. They're bluffing. Those ships have no visible weapon mounts. Probably some science outpost we stumbled across. The Admiral's response died in his throat as the largest human vessel emitted a pulse of silver light. No energy surge accompanied the event. No detectable radiation or particle discharge. Yet every weapon system across the Dominion formation simultaneously powered down. Gunnery stations reported complete circuit failure despite full power reserves. A new voice crackled through the comms, younger and terser than Kane's. This is Captain Brooks of the TS Restraint. We've temporarily disabled your weapon systems to prevent accidents. Science Officer Tell's console abruptly displayed schematics that violated known physics. Hull cross-sections suggested internal spaces larger than external dimensions could contain. Power readings oscillated between impossible highs and absolute zero at 1-second intervals. Admiral, Tell whispered, they're bending reality just by existing here. Their quantum signatures. His voice trailed off as equations scrolled too, fast for Dominion processors to render properly. Engineering Chief Lore sprinted onto the bridge, bypassing protocol. All power transfer conduits just started running backwards for 3 seconds. Our reactors can't decide whether to overload or shut down. The human ships made no aggressive moves. Their perfect formation held station without visible thrust emissions or inertial compensation fields. The lead vessel's prow occasionally faded partially from view, as if momentarily sliding out of phase with normal spacetime. Brooks's voice returned, calm as a training simulation narrator. Your vessels currently occupy restricted Terran experimental space. Our dimensional anchor has temporarily stabilized local physics to prevent a pause. Unpleasant side effects. On the Resplendent's lower decks, damage control teams reported flickering lights and gravity fluctuations. Crew members swore bulkheads momentarily turned transparent. A junior technician's tool passed through a solid console before rematerializing embedded in the opposite wall. Back in Dominion space, Dr. Ryland monitored the task force's telemetry from the High Science Council's observation deck. Her multi-dimensional theory research suddenly seemed less abstract. The anomaly alerts coming from the Resplendent science feeds showed telltale signs of deliberate dimensional folding, technology she'd published hypothetical papers about 6 cycles prior. The humans aren't masking their presence, she murmured to her empty lab. They're existing simultaneously across multiple reality states. Her hands flew across the input panel, attempting to model the energy requirements. The numbers quickly exceeded the output of an entire star system. On screen, Admiral Vex finally broke protocol and addressed Brooks directly. What are you? The response came after precisely 3 seconds of silence. Concerned neighbors. The Sol system houses experimental physics laboratories. Certain boundary tests must be conducted far from populated space. Brooks's image flickered strangely as he spoke, occasionally showing brief overlays of a much older face wearing the same insignia. When he moved his hand, The motion left faint afterimages tracing along planes that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. The operational displays on the Resplendence Bridge abruptly cleared. Every weapon system reported full functionality, restored. Engineering confirmed all anomalous power fluctuations had ceased. The tactical plot still showed 3 human warships. Until the moment the display refreshed, empty space filled the view screen where angular hulls had hovered moments before. No energy signatures, no warp trails. The Resplendence sensors might never have registered anything at all. Search pattern. Delta, Vex ordered. The words came automatically, doctrine dictating procedure when contacts vanished. Deep scans revealed nothing but background radiation and the faintest scattering of atomic particles. 5 light minutes away aboard the TASS, Restraint Captain Brooks watched Dominion ships scramble through multiple sensor sweeps. His navigator adjusted dimensional harmonics while the science officer monitored quantum stability. They'll report back to their High Council, Brooks noted. Their science teams will puzzle over the readings for cycles. Kane appeared in the doorway, normal space image steady, now that dimensional shielding had re-engaged. Will they heed the warning? Brooks brought up the tactical plot showing Dominion space. Hundreds of systems lit up red along the border zones. Probably not. Pride usually demands a second demonstration. On the plotting table between them, Dominion military deployment patterns already shifted. Reserve fleets mobilized. Research, vessels scrambled toward the Sol system. Back in the Dominion Science Council chamber, Dr. Ryland stared at the playback of the restraint's last moments in normal space. On the 9th review, she spotted it. A fractional second where the ship's outline blurred into countless overlapping possibilities. Her hands shook as she calculated the energy required for such controlled dimensional translation. The numbers broke 4 of her processing cores. When she finally looked up at Dominion High Command's inquiry transmission, only one thought seemed worth sharing. They weren't hiding. They were being polite. The Dominion fleet never saw it coming. One moment, they were at full combat readiness. The next, every console on the Resplendence Bridge went dark. Engine readouts flatlined. Thrusters refused to respond. Weapons control locked itself down with layers of encryption no Dominion engineer recognized. Admiral Vex's command chair abruptly lost power, the tactical holograms winking out like snuffed candles. Across the task force, identical reports flooded comm channels. 9 capital ships drifted powerless, their sophisticated drive systems now so much dead weight. Engineering teams scrambled to bypass primary systems, only to find even manual overrides non-responsive. The Dominion crew's confusion rapidly turned to unease. This went beyond systems failure. Something had fundamentally altered how their technology functioned. Dr. Ryland monitored the catastrophe from her distant observation post. Her suppressed feed from the Resplendence science console told a disturbing story. The local laws of physics had been adjusted, not broken. That would imply chaos. These changes bore signatures of deliberate surgical precision. Confirm. She cycled through 3 different analysis suites. They've rewritten electromagnetic constants within a precise spherical boundary. Her instruments estimated the field at exactly 150,000 kilometer radius, perfect containment for the entire Dominion formation. Every Dominion ship is sitting inside a controlled physics anomaly. The High Science Council's emergency channel erupted with demands for explanation. Ryland isolated the critical data point. They haven't destroyed our ships. They've made destruction impossible. Her scans showed Dominion weapons still physically intact, ammunition stores unaffected. Yet any attempt to fire resulted in perfect system failures, like trying to start a combustion engine in hard vacuum. Aboard the TASS restraint, Captain Brooks observed the Dominion fleet's struggles with detached professionalism. His dimensional physics officer monitored containment stability, while tactical kept watch for unexpected reactions. The disablement had required careful calibration, enough to neutralize threat capability, but without permanent damage. On screen, Admiral Vex finally broke through the comm blackout. His image flickered with interference as the containment field played havoc with Dominion transmitters. "Explain this treachery." "No treachery," Brooks responded. His voice carried no gloating, only matter-of-fact clarity. "Standard Terran exclusion protocol. The field is harmless to organic life and won't damage your ships." Below decks, the restraints containment specialists watched gravity wave monitors. Dominion engineers were throwing every bypass attempt at their shackled systems. Each attempt registered as minor ripples in the field's stability matrix, easily absorbed by the dampening grid. "Then release us immediately." Vex's transmission distorted as the field fluctuated momentarily. Brooks shook his head. "Security protocols require a full cycle to confirm no hostile intent remains." He brought up a rotating schematic of the containment field. "Your weapons can't function here. Your engines won't ignite. When we're satisfied the lesson's been understood, you'll be free to go." The restraint science officer noted a worrying development. "Sir, Dominion fleet is attempting warp. Jump initiation." Warning indicators lit across the containment board. That could destabilize the field harmonics. Brooks opened a direct channel. "Admiral, attempting FTL travel inside the containment zone will have unfortunate consequences." His tone remained calm, but took on an edge of warning. "Your ships would emerge in pieces across 12 parallel dimensions." Engineering Chief Lore confirmed the peril on the Resplendence bridge. "Warp core pre-ignition sequence is scattering across multiple energy bands. It's like the physics governing our systems keeps changing every microsecond." His panel displayed nightmarish equations no Dominion computer should have been able to process. At her distant observatory, Dr. Ryland pieced together the containment field's terrifying elegance. "They're not just blocking our technology. They're making the very concept of weapons irrelevant within that space." Her simulations showed any aggressive action by the Dominion ships would automatically trigger increasingly severe physics alterations. Attempt to fire missiles, chemical propellants would fail to combust. Power up lasers, light itself would refuse to amplify. The field represented something beyond mere superior firepower. This was a civilization that had moved past destruction as a defensive strategy. Why obliterate enemies when you could rewrite the rules of engagement itself? Back in containment, Admiral Vex cycled through tactical options with growing frustration. Emergency destruct protocols failed. Boarding parties couldn't launch without thruster control. Even basic communications required the human's permission to penetrate the field. "This is an act of war," Vex transmitted through gritted mandibles. "The Dominion does not yield to threats." Captain Brooks's response came after a deliberate 3-second pause. "Admiral, if this were an act of war, your ships would already be scrap metal floating in deep space." He adjusted a readout only partially visible on the feed. "The Terran Accord prefers restraint where possible, but make no mistake, push further, and we'll demonstrate why certain doors should never be opened." The words hung in the air as the containment field fluctuated again. For one heart-stopping moment, every Dominion crew member simultaneously glimpsed something vast moving in the space around their ships. No sensors registered it, no cameras captured it, but for that fragment of a second, they all felt the presence of something ancient lurking just beyond normal spacetime. Damage control teams reported psychological incidents across the fleet. Crew members described overpowering dread, sensations of being watched by something incomprehensibly old. Several engineers refused to remain near active consoles, insisting the equipment was somehow aware of them. Dr. Ryland's instruments captured the anomaly's side effects. "They're not just projecting the containment field." Her voice shook as data poured in. "They're filtering something else through it." The readings suggested massive dimensional structures moving in synchronicity with the human ships, vast architectures existing partially in normal space. On the bridge of the Resplendent, Admiral Vex finally acknowledged tactical reality. "Stand down all combat protocols." The order went fleet-wide. "All ships, prepare for possible field release." Almost immediately, power fluctuations stabilized across Dominion systems. The crushing sense of observation lifted. Brooks's face reappeared, On main displays, his expression unreadable. Wise decision, Admiral. The containment field indicators on the restraints panels began cycling down. You'll find all systems returning to normal parameters. No permanent damage has been done to your vessels. Science Officer Tell noticed something unsettling about the power restoration sequence. They're bringing systems back online in order of tactical significance. Main engines last. They still have complete control over our capabilities. The containment dissolved gradually over 15 excruciating minutes. Sensor blind spots cleared. Weapon systems ran automated diagnostics. Drive cores hummed back to life. Yet every Dominion officer now understood the disturbing truth. Their entire fleet had been rendered completely helpless without a single shot fired. Captain Brooks's final transmission carried no gloating, only simple fact. Terran space remains, restricted for good reason. The Dominion fleet found itself abruptly alone in the void. Human ships vanished as abruptly as they'd appeared. Back on the bridge, Admiral Vex studied newly functional tactical displays. The implications settled heavily across the command staff. Every Dominion military doctrine, every tactical assumption, had just been rendered obsolete by an enemy who considered weapons technology primitive. One question now dominated strategic projections throughout the fleet. If this was how the humans defended their borders, what unimaginable capabilities did they choose not to deploy? The war chamber of the Dominion Central Command hummed with tactical displays as High Chancellor Dra studied Admiral Vex's after-action report. The domed projection showed ghostly outlines of the 3 Terran warships, their impossible geometries, giving Dominion analysts headaches. Dra tapped one claw against the holotable, dismissing the science warning scrolling along the margins. An embarrassment, he announced to the assembled commanders. Not an existential threat. His tail flicked against the polished floor. These humans trapped ships with some new science trick, then ran when challenged. General Nova stepped forward, armor clanking. Then let's show them real military strength. 200 ships positioned at their borders. Their containment field won't hold against that many simultaneous warp entries. His tactical plot highlighted jump patterns designed to saturate defensive systems. Dr. Ryland's clearance ping barely registered before she forced her way into the strategic feed. Chancellor, every scan suggests the humans were restraining their capabilities, not maximizing them. Her analysis window splashed across the main display, highlighting energy signatures no Dominion reactor could replicate. That science trick rewrote fundamental physical laws. Nova overrode her display with troop deployment vectors. Every primitive race claims advanced technology when cornered. He cycled through 20 potential invasion scenarios. Their ambassador spoke of treaties. Treaties imply fear of conflict. The War Council debates grew heated. Younger commanders cited Dominion expansion through 12 systems against numerically superior foes. Elder tacticians quietly noted all. Those victories came against species sharing the same basic technological frameworks. Chancellor Dra ended discussion with a command gesture. The Dominion does not negotiate with prey species displaying fangs. He authorized Nova's fleet mobilization, overriding 3 separate science advisories. Let these humans understand what true power looks like. Across Dominion space, shipyards scrambled to arm reserve fleets. Conscription orders went out to 3 frontier sectors. The massive Obsidian Blade-class dreadnought, pride of the Dominion Navy, rerouted from Border Patrol to spearhead the Sol system operation. Dr. Ryland watched, preparations from her isolated lab. Her containment field analysis now ran on 12 networked supercomputers, each struggling to model even basic containment principles. When she attempted a small-scale replication, the prototype destabilized 4 decks of the science station before emergency dampeners engaged. She opened a priority channel to Admiral Vex, knowing the transmission would be logged by military sensors. The energy required to sustain their field exceeds our total annual output. Security tags flashed as she transmitted restricted files. This technology isn't more advanced than ours. It's based on entirely different foundational physics. Vex's response came hours later, encrypted through back channels. I've seen the containment data. but the Council has made its decision. On the Resplendent, bridge crews prepped for redeployment, though few officers met each other's eyes. Science officer. Tel's private logs noted disturbing patterns in the Sol system's star. Energy outputs fluctuated in perfect synchronization with the vanished Terran ships, as if the entire stellar body served as some kind of power regulator. Dominion military intelligence dissected every frame of Kane's transmissions. Behavioral. Analysts concluded his calm demeanor indicated bluffing rather than confidence. Their assessment: a death world predator species, but one facing extinction-level resource depletion. Their posturing suggests desperate attempts to protect remaining territory. As mobilization reached critical mass, Chancellor Dra addressed the assembled fleet commanders through the neural command web. The Dominion conquered 17 species because we recognize weakness masked as strength. His image flickered across 200 bridge view screens. These humans hide behind science tricks because they lack true martial spirit. Deep-range scouts reported the Sol system appeared unchanged. No Terran ships orbited the barren worlds. Energy readings remained at baseline levels. The perfect stage for a demonstration of Dominion supremacy. Nova's strategic planners prepared occupation timetables for Earth itself. Cultural databases suggested humans would capitulate once orbital bombardment commenced against population centers. Standard pacification protocols, refined across multiple campaigns. Dr. Ryland worked feverishly as launch sequences counted down. Her last-ditch analysis revealed something the military scanners missed: microscopic dimensional fractures surrounding the entire Sol system. The fractures pulsed in 11-second intervals, matching perfectly with the containment field's core frequency from Admiral Vex's encounter. She broke protocol and accessed the command channel directly. The entire system is rigged. Those fractures are maintaining some kind of security overrides. Cut her transmission mid-sentence. Chancellor Dra's response came via automated reprimand. Science personnel will confine remarks to approved channels. Aboard the Resplendent, Admiral Vex reviewed Ryland's partial data. The fragments suggested the Sol system wasn't just protected, it was actively monitored through dimensional threads, extending light years in all directions. He hesitated before issuing standby orders to his task force. Not cowardice, caution. On dozens of Dominion worlds, civilian populations watched mobilization reports with ritual pride. News feeds played looping footage of past victories. Every narrative emphasized the same theme: Dominion arms always prevailed. When challenged, tension spiked when scout probes approaching the Sol system boundary transmitted bizarre final images. The star itself appeared to flicker, not in brightness but in fundamental color signature. Then the probes stopped responding entirely. Fleet Command dismissed the anomalies as technical glitches. Navigational beacons confirmed clear transit lanes into the target system. Final jump calculations were approved without consulting science divisions. As the massive Dominion Armada completed jump preparations, a single encrypted message reached Admiral Vex's personal console. Dr. Ryland's security clearance had been revoked, but civilian researchers forwarded her final analysis. The humans aren't merely advanced, they're alien to our science. Their containment field wasn't technology, it was a failsafe, the equivalent of child-proofing dangerous tools. The Resplendent's comm board detected a priority transmission, originating from inside the formation itself, though no ship claimed responsibility. On every view screen, Kane's message repeated in tight beam frequency. Stand down. General Nova ordered full battle stations. 200 Dominion warships engaged warp drives in perfect synchronization. At that exact moment, Terran deep-range monitoring stations registered the incoming fleet's energy signatures. Automatic protocols activated, triggering a sequence older than recorded human history. In the Sol system, something vast stirred beneath the fabric of space-time. The Dominion Armada emerged from warp space in flawless formation, 200 warships materializing simultaneously along the Sol system's defensive perimeter. Tactical officers immediately noted discrepancies. Their arrival coordinates were correct. Astrogation confirmed it, but the stellar background didn't match their charts. The system's star burned several degrees cooler than recorded, its light tinged blue at wavelengths no natural star should produce. General Nova's flagship Osiris registered the first anomaly. Gravity sensors indicate. The tactical officer recalibrated 3 times. All planetary masses have shifted positions. New orbital patterns don't conform to gravitational mechanics. Bridge displays across the fleet flickered as sensor processors struggled. The innermost planet now occupied what should have been the 3rd orbital position. Its surface glowed with geometric city lights visible from the outer system. Military intelligence had catalogued Sol 4 as an airless rock incapable of supporting life. The Obsidian Blade science officer triggered emergency alerts. Multiple artificial structures detected orbiting the star. His voice cracked. Scale of construction exceeds standard measurements. What Dominion scanners initially mistook for asteroid belts resolved into concentric rings of incomprehensible size. Each ring segment showed intricate machinery, the smallest components dwarfing their largest capital ships. Energy readings spiked as dormant systems activated in response to the fleet's arrival. Nova opened fleet-wide comms. Battle formation Epsilon, all weapons free. His tactical display lit with targeting solutions. Engage any structure showing activity. Before the order could propagate, the star changed. Pulsing luminescence rippled across its surface in perfect geometric waves. The light particles themselves seemed to redirect mid-flight, forming shimmering hexagonal patterns in space around the Dominion fleet. Every warship suddenly registered multiple lockdown alerts, not just weapons systems this time, but propulsion, communications, even life support. The Resplendence bridge erupted with damage reports. Admiral Vex watched his display zoom out automatically as sensors detected something his tactical computer refused to believe. The rings weren't orbiting the star. They were connected to it. Spiral filaments of plasma extended from the stellar surface, feeding directly into the closest megastructure. Full withdrawal, Vex commanded. Emergency jump protocols, Science Officer Tell interrupted. No spatial coordinates registering outside containment field. Warp drives non-responsive. His console spat out nightmare calculations. Admiral, we're inside the structure. The revelation spread through the fleet like stellar radiation. Those rings weren't separate constructs. They were segments of a single machine enclosing the entire system. The supposed planets weren't celestial bodies at all, but movable components in an architecture vast enough to use gravity wells as structural supports. Dominion science teams had theorized about Dyson spheres. The idea wasn't new. But this was no simple energy collection shell. The Sol system didn't house discrete megastructures. Every asteroid, every orbiting body, every apparent empty patch of space was part of a unified mechanism whose individual processors operated across quantum states. General Nova's flagship fired the first salvo. 37 capital-grade plasma. Torpedoes streaked toward the nearest ring segment. Optics tracked projectiles crossing the distance until they didn't. The weapons simply ceased existing at a clearly defined boundary approximately 2 million kilometers from their target. 5. More ships tried concentrated laser fire. The beams bent sideways upon entering the boundary zone, reconfiguring into strange helical patterns before dissolving into the void. Then the activation sequence began. Starting from the innermost ring, vast sections of the megastructure lit up in recursive geometric patterns. Energy flows became visible as stark white lines connecting components across billions of kilometers. The false planets shifted positions with casual ease, their movements generating gravitational waves that Dominion instruments struggled to quantify. Comm systems crackled to life without warning. A human male's voice resonated through every ship simultaneously, though no transmission source registered on scanners. This is Director Cross of Terran Oversight. His words carried weight beyond mere sound. You are currently contained within Sol Prime Control Structure. The Osiris's tactical officer found his weapons panel reactivated briefly, just long enough to show every targeting solution automatically redirected away from human assets. Attempts to override caused immediate system shutdowns. Cross continued, as the star's luminosity pulsed in time with his speech. Your attempted attack triggered automated defenses. A holographic projection of the Dyson sphere's true form overlaid every view screen. This is not a weapon, it's a regulatory mechanism. The projection zoomed out to show the mechanism's terrifying scale. The entire Sol system had been reshaped into a single computational entity. Planetary masses functioned as harmonic stabilizers. The star served as both power source and processing core. Even the empty space between components was carefully tuned void, where certain physical constants could be selectively adjusted. Nova's command staff watched helplessly as 50,000 simulated Dominion warships appeared in tactical projections, a theoretical invasion force orders of magnitude larger than their actual fleet. The simulation played out in milliseconds. Every possible attack vector resulted in immediate containment and disablement. No scenario showed successful engagement. Director Cross's message ended with unsettling simplicity. The entire star system is a single living machine. The comms cut as all Dominion ships registered massive energy buildup from multiple ring segments. Emergency klaxons wailed across the resplendent. Admiral Vex's tactical display showed the reason. Every ship in the fleet was now caught in precise tractor beams emanating from across the system. Not mechanical grabbers, but directed. Gravity fields capable of moving entire battle groups like game pieces. The Osiris attempted evasive maneuvers. Nova watched his flagship's engines redline, producing zero effect on their movement. Outside view screens showed the dreadnought being repositioned with chilling precision alongside hundreds of other vessels. Science. Officer Tell grabbed his console as new readings scrolled past. They're sorting us. Disbelief colored every word. Arranging ships by class, tonnage, even armament configurations. His hands shook over the sensor display. Like storage organization. Across the fleet, engineering teams reported identical phenomena. Not a single system could resist the reordering process. Life support remained functional, but every ship became a prisoner inside its own hull. Dominion pride fractured under the unspoken message. This civilization considered their entire military might barely worth cataloging. Deep in the bowels of high command, Dr. Ryland watched the live feeds with horrified awe. Her containment field. Research suddenly made terrible sense. The Sol system wasn't guarding Terran space because it needed protection. It was an airlock, a deliberate choke point preventing the galaxy from accidentally triggering humanity's dormant systems. Her private calculations estimated the energy output required to maintain such a construct exceeded the output of 30 conventional stars. Yet here, it functioned effortlessly, casually dismantling the Dominion's entire strategic capability without even registering the effort. Back inside the Dyson sphere, Admiral Vex noted another disturbing detail. Components of the megastructure kept vanishing from scans only to reappear microseconds later with altered configurations. The entire system existed partially outside normal spacetime, maintaining just enough presence in reality to function when needed. New projection appeared on the Resplendence Bridge, a human male in military dress standing before what appeared to be an operational control hub. This is General Mason. His voice carried none of Cross's detached calm, only grave certainty. You will be released shortly. He gestured to something outside the projection frame. What you've witnessed is barely a fraction of our capabilities. Tactical monitoring showed the tractor beams shifting again. Every Dominion ship was being gently repositioned along the system's outer edge. The megastructure's activation sequence, now pulsed in reverse, power diminishing section by section. Your weapons will remain non-functional until exit, Mason stated. Your sensor logs will be preserved intact. We want the Dominion leadership to understand exactly what they provoked today. The Osiris regained limited thruster control first. General Nova hesitated before issuing withdrawal orders. His tactical screens showed all 200 ships arranged in perfect parade formation, mocked by precision no Dominion admiral had ever achieved. Final confirmation came via automated transmission from the restraint. Captain Brooks's voice held no malice, only weary experience. The entire Sol system serves as Terran experimental space. Our research into dimensional stabilization requires extreme isolation. As warp drives came back online throughout the I fleet, one last transmission reached High Command through channels no Dominion engineer could trace. Director Cross provided a single data packet containing schematics of the partial Dyson sphere, specifically the portions retrofitted for military containment. The accompanying message was succinct. Terran's sovereignty extends 150 light-years beyond what you perceive as our borders. Every star system in that volume contains similar safeguards. Cross further without invitation, and next time we won't disable your weapons. We'll unmake the concepts that allow them to function. The Dominion Armada jumped away in disarray, tactical computers automatically marking every Terran-claimed system with new warning codes. Behind them, the Sol system's star resumed its deceptively normal appearance, megastructures fading back into dimensional phases no scanner could detect. Aboard the Resplendent, Admiral Vex reviewed the engagement records with growing unease. Every tactic, every protocol, every assumption about warfare had been rendered meaningless in minutes. His fleet hadn't been defeated. It had been managed. Science Officer Tell isolated the most disturbing data point. Their technology doesn't just surpass ours. His fingers traced energy readings that defied known physics. It operates on fundamentally different scientific principles. We're not facing superior firepower. We're facing a civilization that's redefined reality itself. Back in Dominion space, General Mason prepared his briefing for the High Council. The humans' message was about to change the balance of galactic power forever. The war chamber on Earth's Luna Command Station held none of the Dominion's ostentatious displays. Simple steel bulkheads surrounded a circular table, where General Mason stood waiting for the encrypted link to establish. His uniform showed none of the medals or decorative elements favored by Dominion commanders, only a single silver insignia marking him as speaker for the Terran Historical Oversight Committee. When the connection stabilized, Chancellor Draw's furious visage appeared alongside Admiral Vex's more subdued hologram. "We're not what you think," Mason began without preamble. His feed showed archival footage overlaying the conference table. Ancient, star maps labeling hundreds of now Dominion worlds with Terran designations. These weren't colonies, they were containment zones. The footage shifted to show ruins buried beneath modern Dominion cities. Hidden beneath millennia of new construction, the stonework bore inscriptions matching Terran warning symbols still used today. 30,000 years ago, Mason continued, humanity ruled this galactic arm, not through diplomacy or trade, through forced unification. Security codes scrolled along the bottom of the transmission as higher clearance materials loaded. We called it the Great Harmonization. Admiral Vex's posture stiffened as the recordings showed massive fleets dwarfing anything the Dominion possessed. World after world fell to swarms of black-hulled ships deploying weapons that altered planetary climates in weeks. The dates matched. The archaeological blank spot Dominion scholars called the Great Silence, a 12,000-year period where few intact records survived. Mason advanced the timeline. Then we developed dimensional phase technology. The recording showed a research facility orbiting a blue giant star. Not for travel, for energy extraction. The experiment played out in grainy detail. Scientists activating a containment field around an entire star, energy readings spiking off the scales, then catastrophe. The star violently ejected a beam of compressed plasma that punched through normal space like a needle through fabric. First breach occurred here, Mason said, highlighting a sector now deep in Dominion territory. The archival scans showed reality, itself unraveling at the edges, planets briefly becoming transparent, gravity fluctuating wildly. We accidentally connected our dimension with 11 others. Most were incompatible with our physics. Security footage from a doomed station showed the horror. Crew members screaming as their bodies distorted under conflicting physical laws. A research vessel's hull bending inside out while remaining technically intact. The recording cut abruptly as the station's cameras failed. Vex noted the date stamp, matched ancient Dominion legends about the time of shattered skies. Fragmentary religious texts described exactly these phenomena, whole systems vanishing behind curtains of distorted light. The breach wars lasted 6 centuries, Mason said. Entire star systems blinked off the tactical displays as dimensional contamination spread. We nearly destroyed the galaxy trying to contain our own mistakes. The recordings showed desperate measures: planets evacuated, suns detonated as makeshift quarantines, a staggering 97% casualty rate among stabilization crews, all human worlds enforcing brutal rationing to fuel reality-patching missions. Dominion scholars had always assumed these gaps in the archaeological record indicated some great cosmic disaster. The truth proved worse. It was deliberate damage, controlled by a civilization frantically trying to undo its own hubris. At the height of the crisis, Mason continued, we developed the Sol-type constructs. Blueprints appeared showing early Dyson sphere variants, specifically designed to stabilize space-time. Not for energy collection, as anchors to prevent further unraveling. The footage showed human engineers deliberately dismantling their own empire. Shipyards repurposed from war production to reality stabilization. Military AIs reprogrammed as guardians, preventing access to dangerous research areas. Chancellor Diarra finally spoke, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. You expect us to believe humans voluntarily surrendered galactic dominance? Mason didn't blink. Would you prefer we hadn't? He pulled up current-day scans of Dominion space with overlays showing faint dimensional stress fractures. The Sol network maintains over 14,000 critical fault lines. That containment field your ships encountered? A modified version of the same technology we use to prevent reality itself from coming apart at the seams. Admiral Vex's eyes locked onto the readouts. The barely perceptible energy signatures aligned perfectly with ancient Dominion haunting zones, regions where sensors always behaved erratically. My ancestors fought in the last containment war, Mason said. The date matched no known conflict. In Dominion records, 7 billion humans died sealing the final breach. After that, we imposed the Great Limitation. Policy documents flashed by, the legal framework forcing Terran civilization to abandon expansionist ambitions. Every line inscribed with safeguards against repeating past mistakes. The final image showed Earth's solar system encircled by hundreds of monitoring stations. This isn't a border, Mason stated. It's a quarantine. Vex noted the defensive installations, made no attempt to conceal themselves. Their positions and capabilities were publicly documented, an unheard-of transparency among galactic powers. Your probes detected no life in the Sol system because we engineered it that way, Mason said. The entire region exists under strict dimensional damping to prevent residual energy from our old experiments destabilizing normal space. Dra remained unconvinced. Convenient excuses for military weakness. Mason activated one last recording. The timestamp placed it during the Breach War's darkest days. A star system hung suspended in space, its planets frozen mid-explosion. Not destroyed. Paused. Every volcanic eruption, every shockwave, every fleeing ship suspended motionless like figures in a painting. 23 intelligent species existed, here, Mason said quietly. Caught between conflicting physical laws when dimensions overlapped. The recording zoomed in on a city frozen at the instant of its destruction, buildings both burning and flooded simultaneously under impossible physics. This is why Terran space remains restricted. The transmission ended with current-day footage from the Sol system. The Dyson sphere's activation sequence played in reverse as it powered down. We're not conquerors, Mason repeated, as the link began terminating. We learned the hard way that restraint isn't weakness. It's the only reason this galaxy still exists. Admiral Vex sat motionless long after the feed cut. His tactical display automatically pulled up Dominion deep-range surveys, mapping Mason's claimed fault lines against known space. The correlation was troubling. On the Resplendence Bridge, Science Officer Tell worked frantic calculations. Admiral, those dimensional stress readings match exactly with... His voice failed momentarily. With all our deepest sensor anomalies, the ones we always dismissed as equipment errors. Across Dominion space, Dr. Ryland accessed restricted archives using Mason's provided clearance codes. What she found turned her scales pale. Buried deep in ancient storage, geological surveys of conquered worlds showed telltale stress fractures, identical to those from Mason's records. One file stood out, an encrypted research note from the first Dominion scouts to encounter Terrans 30 generations ago. The final line explained why it had been classified for centuries. They don't fear us. They fear what they might do to us. The High Science Council convened emergency session after emergency session as data poured in. Mason's historical documents, aligned perfectly with anomalies Dominion science had long dismissed as mythical. On the observation deck of Luna Command, General Mason watched Dominion ships withdraw from Terran borders. His aide handed over a fresh report. Early signs suggest that Dominion was recalling expeditionary forces from 3 frontier sectors. Monitor their research programs closely, Mason ordered, especially anything relating to dimensional physics. As Dominion space reeled from the revelations, one question dominated tactical assessments across both civilizations. How do you wage war against an enemy whose greatest fear is their own destructive potential? Meanwhile, in the deep archives beneath the High Science Council's tower, Dr. Ryland made a disturbing discovery. The oldest records in the vault, predating the Dominion's founding, contained references to an even earlier civilization that supposedly vanished after attempting similar experiments. The linguistic analysis took hours before the translation. Stabilzed. The lost species had a name for whatever cataclysm befell them. They called it the Second Warning. Dr. Ryland's access codes finally unlocked the deepest vault beneath the High Science Council archives after 72 hours of continuous authentication checks. The chamber's climate control systems hummed. As she stepped inside, breath fogging slightly in the chilled air. Her scaled fingers traced decades of dust on the oldest data stacks, storage units so ancient they predated the Dominion's founding. The first records came up corrupted. Standard Dominion archival tags dissolved into gibberish at certain temporal markers. Ryland recalibrated the reader 3 times before realizing the files weren't damaged. They'd been deliberately scrambled using encryption keys lost to history. Only when she applied General Mason's access protocols did the fragments coalesce into coherence. Visual logs showed a convocation of species long extinct. The first Galactic Council chamber stretched beyond the projector's resolution limits, its architecture unlike anything in modern space. Ryland counted 17 distinct delegation sigils before the recording stabilized enough to identify details. One emblem matched the faded markings Captain Brooks had worn during the Sol system encounter, the angular Terran Accord symbol. Council proceedings scrolled past in untranslated dialects. Ryland's linguistic AI flagged recurring phrases, dimensional stability protocols, containment breach thresholds, oversight authority. Then, without warning, every Terran representative simultaneously activated withdrawal procedures mid-session. The date stamp placed this exactly 128 standard cycles before the Dominion's earliest historical records began. Security footage from a monitoring station showed the aftermath. Terran fleet movements suddenly redirected from patrol routes to strategic fallback positions. Construction drones abandoned half-finished colonies to begin dismantling orbital installations. No battle, no crisis, just methodical abandonment on a galactic scale. Ryland cross-referenced with Mason's historical briefings. The timeline aligned perfectly with humanity's self-described Great Limitation period. She isolated a peculiar detail. Every withdrawn Terran vessel left behind monitoring beacons broadcasting overlapping warning chants in 17 languages. Some still functioned in remote systems, mistaken for natural pulsars by modern Dominion astronomers. The science officer nearly missed the critical entry buried under administrative logs. A single Terran transmission remained untranslated in the archives because no living scholar recognized its encryption matrix. When Ryland fed Mason's codes into the parser, the message resolved with chilling clarity. Phase 2 Stabilization. Failing. Implement Protocol Final Watch. All member species advised to enforce 20 light-year exclusion zones around markers Beta through Kappa. Gods help us all. Archival sensors showed corresponding energy surges from that era. 12 systems went dark simultaneously, not destroyed but enclosed in massive containment fields identical to the Sol construct. Dominion archaeology teams had cataloged these as dead zones, assuming natural phenomena. The records proved otherwise. Ryland pulled up current star charts with the archival data overlaid. Every Terran restricted system sat precisely at the intersections of those ancient containment fields. The Sol system wasn't an isolated outpost. It was one node in a galaxy-spanning network of reality anchors. Security protocols locked Ryland's console without warning. A synthetic voice resonated through the archive vault's speakers. Unauthorized access attempt detected. The temperature dropped further as holographic projectors activated against the walls. State your clearance purpose. Ryland inputted Mason's codes again. The system cycled through authentication for 11 excruciating seconds. Then the holograms resolved into a humanoid figure, draped in what appeared to be shifting quantum static. Its face blurred between countless possible configurations. "I am Vale," it announced. First-generation oversight intelligence. The voice resonated at frequencies that made Ryland's spinal ridges vibrate uncomfortably. "You have accessed sealed history." The archives flickered as Vale sifted through Ryland's recent searches. The AI paused at the first council footage. "They never understood," it murmured. The projection shifted to show star maps from that era with Terran systems highlighted. These weren't border defenses. They were fail-safes. Ryland's display updated with classified schematics. The ancient containment fields didn't just lock away dangerous technology. They maintained reality itself in regions where dimensional physics had been permanently destabilized by Terran experiments. The Sol system's Dyson sphere was merely the latest model in a succession dating back millennia. "Your Dominion now occupies 7 critical stabilization zones," Vale continued. "Your energy extraction operations on Clave X3, disrupting subsurface anchor points, mining operations in the Henson belts, gradually unspooling repairs completed 12,000 cycles ago. Security feeds showed current Dominion industrial operations superimposed over Vale's ancient schematics. The correlation was undeniable. Every major resource extraction site coincided with hidden Terran infrastructure. What Dominion engineers took for natural energy deposits were actually containment field power relays. "You must understand," Vale insisted. Its form solidified momentarily into an elderly human male before destabilizing again. The great limitation wasn't surrender. It was responsibility. Galactic maps updated to show reality fractures slowly widening beneath Dominion territory. "Your people are hammering at supports holding up the galactic basement." Ryland isolated the most disturbing implication. "You're saying we're causing what exactly?" "Localized reality collapse." Vale displayed simulations of civilian centers, destabilizing, buildings flickering between existent states, organisms suffering cellular disintegration as fundamental forces wavered. "The first symptoms already appear near your deepest excavations." The AI pulled up recent Dominion news feeds. Ryland recognized the reports: mysterious, haunting syndromes at frontier colonies, equipment malfunctioning unpredictably, crews reporting time skips, all dismissed as superstition or equipment failure, all aligned perfectly with Vale's fracture maps. "Does the High Council know?" Ryland asked. Vale's hologram dimmed. "Elements within your science directorate have suspected. For decades, security footage showed Dominion researchers quietly abandoning certain dig sites after unexplained accidents. The rest consider it heresy against expansion doctrine. The projection changed to show current Terran monitoring stations tracking Dominion activities in real time. Ryland spotted automated response protocols ready to trigger should certain thresholds be crossed. Not military counterstrikes, but emergency reality stabilization measures that would render entire sectors temporarily uninhabitable. "We could stop you any time," Vale admitted, "but restraint defines modern Terran policy." The AI displayed historical footage of ancient Terran warships holding position as early Dominion scouts encroached on restricted zones. "Your entire civilization developed in the spaces we deliberately left uncontested." Ryland's hands trembled as she manipulated the star charts. The Dominion's proudest conquests, the Klavex systems, the Henson asteroid belts, even their capital world, all sat comfortably within regions Terran archives designated as safe settlement zones for developing species. The final revelation came when Vale accessed architectural schematics of the High Science Council building itself. Structural scans revealed Terran stabilization nodes embedded in the foundation stones, invisible to scanners, quietly reinforcing local spacetime since before the Dominion's founding. The Council had unknowingly built its seat of power atop ancient safeguard machinery. They retreated to protect the galaxy from themselves, Vale concluded. The projection shrank to a single glowing point. The only question is whether your people are wise enough to turn back before repeating our mistakes. Ryland barely registered the hologram dissolving. Her workstation automatically compiled reports for the High Council, even as Vale's final words echoed in the vault. Around her, the archive displays still showed Dominion mining operations proceeding apace on Klavex III. Unaware, they chipped away at fail-safes holding reality together. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, emergency sessions debated Mason's revelations. Hardliners dismissed the historical records as Terran propaganda. Moderates urged caution. No consensus emerged until every display screen in the government quarter abruptly switched to Terran Sovereign Channel 1. Director Cross's face appeared, his expression grave. Effective immediately, he announced. The Terran Accord will begin emergency stabilization procedures in Klavex and Henson sectors. Dominion defense grids registered no transmission source. The message simply manifested across all networked systems simultaneously. Admiral Vex's tactical feed lit with activity as border monitors detected massive energy buildups along the frontier. Not weapons fire, something far stranger. Space itself seemed to ripple as ancient machinery stirred from dormancy. The Dominion communication networks erupted in chaos when Director Cross's transmission hit every planetary broadcast system simultaneously. No warning, no gradual escalation. Just a crisp declaration that shattered 7 centuries of imperial doctrine. Effective immediately, all Protectorate species under Dominion rule may petition for independent governance. The message included secure access codes to subspace transmitters that circumvented Dominion censorship channels. On the orbital docks above Klavex Prime, human administrators materialized from nondescript transport vessels. Not soldiers, bureaucrats, in simple gray uniforms carrying data slates listing every conquered world's resource rights and historical claims. Shipyard foremen watched stunned as these officials began methodically shutting down slave labor compounds with the same detached efficiency as someone performing routine maintenance. High Chancellor Dira's emergency council session dissolved into shouting within minutes. Military advisors confirmed powerless to stop the transmissions. The Dominion's vaunted cyber warfare divisions reported something unprecedented. Their countermeasures weren't being blocked so much as ignored. The very architecture of information flow shifting beneath their efforts like sand becoming water. This is insurrection. Dira's hologram flickered across 17 planetary crisis centers. His security feeds showed Terran officials facilitating rebel meetings right outside government compounds. Not smuggling weapons, distributing legal charters. All governors will mobilize garrison forces to suppress. The order died unfinished. Tactical displays updated with fresh alerts across 300 Protectorate worlds. Dominion garrisons found their armories locked down by what appeared to be their own security protocols. Transport hubs refused military traffic while freely permitting civilian evacuation. Power grids selectively disabled government centers while keeping hospitals operational. Admiral Vex reviewed the incoming reports aboard the Resplendent. Unlike Dara's reactionary rage, he noted the surgical precision of these disruptions. No explosions. No collateral damage. Just systemic unraveling as every component of Dominion control identified itself as belonging to someone else. Clever, Science Officer Tell muttered over the command channel. They didn't attack our systems. They proved we never truly owned them. His engineering readouts showed Dominion infrastructure quietly acknowledging prior claims dating back to First Council-era treaties. Dr. Ryland's private message appeared on Vex's secondary display. Footage from the old archives showed Terran engineers constructing the very space stations Dominion now considered their most secure assets. "We've been administering another civilization's property for generations," she warned. "They're not invading. They're revoking access privileges." On the surface of Henson 6, Dominion Governor Prell stood frozen before his terrace windows. Below the administrative spire, 27 species once kept separated by imperial policy now mingled openly in the courtyards. Human mediators distributed documents while medical teams treated injuries his enforcers had inflicted for decades. No violence, just methodical, irreversible dismantling of hierarchies that had seemed eternal. Prell's emergency transmitter spat static when he attempted to call for reinforcements. The automated response carried no smugness, only simple fact. This frequency is now reserved for civilian coordinating purposes. All military bands have been reassigned. Similar scenes unfolded across Dominion space. On Clavex mining colonies, overseers found their shock implants deactivated while worker cooperatives accessed full planetary surveys for the first time. In the Henson Belt, mercenary garrisons awoke to find their warships' navigation locked on courses back to Dominion core worlds. The great propaganda relays of Central Command now broadcast restoration projects for ecosystems damaged by Imperial resource extraction. The High Council's emergency session collapsed when security feeds showed their own guards handing over armory keys to local militia, not under duress, following standard procedure after verifying updated chain of command authorization. Director Cross appeared again on all channels, not from a studio or command center. Standing in the ruins of what Dominion archives labeled Execution Plaza on Clavex III, the same spot where 12 generations of rebel leaders had been publicly eliminated, now crowded with representatives from 17 former protectorates. "Every species you conquered retains ancestral claim to their systems," Cross stated. Data streams scrolled alongside him showing planetary deeds predating Dominion expansion. Military occupation never negated those rights. It merely postponed their enforcement. High Command's last secure lines showed Dominion core worlds reeling. Economies built on exploited labor froze as supply chains recognized new ownership. Reserve fleets stranded by suddenly unfamiliar logistics protocols. Once feared interior ministers scrambling to prove they had no outstanding warrants under liberated legal systems, Admiral Vex's tactical officer highlighted the key strategic reality. They didn't defeat us militarily. They made our entire political structure legally invalid. The Resplendence archives confirmed it. Every Dominion conquest had technically occurred during what Terrans still considered an unauthorized administrative period after First Council's collapse. General Mason's final transmission to Vex contained no threats. Just a complete dossier on which Dominion leaders had personal involvement in war crimes versus those who merely followed orders. The implicit message was clear. Terran intervention would distinguish between the irredeemable and the salvageable. Core world governors panicked as their luxury liners refused liftoff clearance. Financial magnates discovered their accounts frozen by algorithms enforcing ancient restitution laws. The machinery of oppression didn't just stop working. It became the instrument of its own dismantling. On Henson Prime, Director Cross stood before the crumbling statue of Dominion founder Vexus the Conqueror. A crowd of newly liberated citizens watched as he input final codes into the planetary administration console. "Original governance systems restoring," the voice announced. The translation matrix adjusted archaic terms into modern equivalents. Senate chambers repressurizing, orbital voting arrays coming online. Across the plaza, Dominion administrators sat quietly on decorative benches under the watch of their former subjects. No cages, no executions. Just supervised waiting while new old governments decided their fates. The Resplendent's last orders came from an unexpected source, Dr. Ryland's Civilian Oversight Committee. Admiral Vex read the command with grim understanding. All Dominion, military assets to stand down pending reassignment under provisional authority. The authorization codes were stamped with First Galactic Council seals nobody had used in 15,000 cycles. Science Officer Tell compared historical records with current star charts. They didn't conquer us, he realized. They just ended the interregnum. On Earth's Luna station, General Mason monitored the transition through 15,000 autonomous reports. Not occupation, repatriation. The Dominion hadn't been destroyed so much as rendered obsolete by reactivated precedents. One screen showed Chancellor Draw's capture, attempting to flee through service tunnels beneath Central Command. His security detail voluntarily stepped, aside for civic peacekeepers, their loyalty algorithms finally prioritizing moral authority over chain of command. Cross's voice carried the same calm finality everywhere transmissions reached. The Age of Empire is officially over. Deep in the Terran exclusion zone, monitoring stations designed 30,000 years ago awakened from dormant states. Director Cross stood on the observation deck of Oversight Platform 1, watching holographic displays bloom with fresh data. Each node represented liberated Dominion territories, once conquered worlds now adjusting to self-rule under the reactivated First Galactic Council charters. Cross tapped a control, and 59 systems lit amber with signs of instability. Initiate. Protocol watchful transition, he instructed. Across the network, dormant satellites activated stabilization routines, not to control, to prevent chaos. On liberated Clavex III, the first planetary elections in centuries nearly collapsed when 3 factions claimed executive authority. Terran mediators didn't intervene. Instead, they activated buried archival systems that projected the planet's original governance protocols onto every public screen. The bickering delegates fell silent when they recognized clauses signed by their own ancestors 12 generations prior. Dr. Ryland observed from her new station aboard the TAS Veritas. Her monitors showed former Dominion worlds struggling with the weight of sudden freedom. They don't know how to govern, she noted, only how to obey. Director Cross zoomed the display onto the Henson sector. That's why the First Council established oversight parameters. His console revealed hidden machinery beneath colony foundations, ancient fail-safes designed not to rule, but to educate. We don't dictate their choices. We ensure they remember they have choices. The Veritas sensors detected energy surges from Dominion core worlds, not weapons fire, industrial systems rebooting under new ownership. Ryland's anthropological scans showed something more interesting. Citizens gathering in public squares, cautiously testing the boundaries of their newfound autonomy. A shopkeeper on Clavex Prime removed Dominion insignia from his storefront without retribution. Small acts with seismic implications. Cross activated another protocol. Across 9 critical systems, machines built before recorded Dominion history extended quantum filaments into the interstellar medium, stabilizing local reality. Fractures, he explained as Ryland's console displayed the web-like structure. They damaged the substrate with their mining operations. Now we repair it. Ryland compared the data with Dominion archaeological records. The correlation was unmistakable. Every site of ancient natural disasters aligned with locations where Terran records showed reality anchor failures. What Dominions believed were cosmic accidents were actually the consequences of tampering with safeguards they never knew existed. On the planet Silva, former slave species debated their first planetary budget. The discussion grew heated until civic displays activated independently, showing comparative models from neighboring systems. Not recommendations, just information. Silva's delegates paused, then requested trade histories from 3 other liberated worlds. Director Cross permitted himself a rare smile. The machinery isn't giving orders. It's providing context. 3 sectors away, remnants of the Dominion military gathered in secret. Not to fight, to negotiate surrender terms. Admiral Vex's encrypted transmission reached Oversight Platform directly. Requesting transitional assistance, he stated simply. His tactical display showed Dominion warships standing down across 12 systems. We can't maintain order while dismantling our own chain of command. Cross-authorized deployment. Of the Veritas and 3 sister ships, their orders: observe, advise when asked. Never command. Dr. Ryland monitored Silva's first election results as they trickled in. The winning candidate had been a minor Dominion logistics officer weeks earlier. His inaugural speech stressed infrastructure over ideology, a practical choice. From someone accustomed to solving tangible problems. "Will it hold?" she asked Cross. The director pointed to stabilization metrics. "For now, the real test comes when factions emerge that didn't exist under Dominion rule." His display highlighted dormant intervention protocols. The first council designed for that too. Ryland studied the layered safeguards. Each step permitted increasing autonomy as civilizations demonstrated responsibility, a test you're not telling them about. "Would you disclose the criteria of an ethics exam beforehand?" Cross adjusted the Veritas assignment parameters. "You'll monitor Sector 12. Report any signs of emergent institutional cruelty." On the surface of Silva, newly elected officials attempted their first planetary budget. Disputes arose immediately over resource allocation. Just as tensions peaked, public displays showed comparative models from 4 similar worlds, historical examples of cooperative success. The delegates noticed, adjusted their proposals, continued debating. Back at Oversight Platform, Cross reviewed progress reports from 27 liberated systems. Each showed similar patterns: hesitant steps toward self-governance, occasional stumbles, gradual stabilization. Only 3 required minor corrective interventions when opportunistic warlords attempted to seize control. These were resolved not by force, but by releasing documented evidence of the warlords' past crimes directly to local populations. The Veritas entered Sector 12 as scheduled. Dr. Ryland's first assignment involved investigating anomalous energy, readings near a former Dominion penal colony. Scans revealed Terran reality anchors buried beneath the prison complex, purposefully damaged during construction centuries earlier. "That explains the distortion fields," she noted. "They built over a quantum stabilizer node." Her repair recommendation transmitted automatically to Oversight. Within hours, buried machines activated self-repair routines, while colony administrators received geological surveys suggesting relocation. Checks and balances operated at every level. Planetary governments limited by historical precedent archives, economic systems constrained by resource sustainability protocols, military forces monitored by reactivated First Council oversight AIs. Cross reviewed a fresh tactical update. Scout ships probing Terran borders found no fleets, no weapons, only crystalline monitoring satellites blinking in the void. Each emitted the same message when approached. Terran space restricted by choice, not incapacity. Entry without permission will result in permanent redirection. No threats, just facts. On Silva, the first independent trade agreements were signed without Terran mediation. Ryland watched civic leaders navigate negotiations that would have been unthinkable months earlier. When disputes arose, they consulted planetary archives instead of calling for oversight. Director Cross observed similar patterns across liberated space. "They're learning," he noted. The stabilization web pulsed stronger with each passing cycle as civilizations remembered how to govern themselves. Ancient machinery hummed in the background, unseen, unfelt, unless needed. Final reports from Sector 12 confirmed Ryland's hypothesis. Dominion industrialization had strained reality anchors precisely where social structures were weakest. "Oppression damages more than people," she transmitted to Oversight. "It warps the fabric of collective existence." Cross acknowledged with a data packet of his own, projections showing stabilization spreading through liberated systems like healing tissue. The process would take generations, but the trajectory was clear. As the Veritas departed Sector 12, its long-range arrays detected something unexpected. Dominion remnant factions weren't regrouping for war. They were convening constitutional conventions under the watchful optics of Terran monitors. On the edge of Terran space, a single satellite activated protocols unused for millennia. Not a weapon, a beacon. It broadcast the original First Council, membership invitation across newly liberated regions. The message repeated every 11 hours, cycling through 17 extinct languages before concluding in modern standard galactic. Civilization isn't control, it's the willingness to be accountable. Director. Cross shut down the transmission interface. For the first time in 15,000 years, the galaxy was listening. The Dominion learned what all empires eventually discover. Power unrestrained becomes its own undoing. Humanity's true strength wasn't their Dyson spheres or dimensional weapons, but the scars left by their own failures. Every restricted system, every locked archive contained the same warning. Unchecked ambition inevitably collapses under its own weight. The galaxy now watches liberated worlds test their newfound freedom while Terran monitors stand silent. Not as rulers, as reminders. The real frontier was never physical space, but the discipline to recognize limits. Will emerging civilizations heed the lesson written in ruin and restraint? History suggests most won't. The wise always do. The age of conquest ended when wisdom became survival.